There comes a stage in many founder-led businesses where, from the outside, everything looks as though it's moving in the right direction. The revenue is stronger than it's ever been. There are more clients, the team has grown, opportunities keep coming. By most measures, the business is succeeding. Yet, the founder often feels less in control than they did a year or two ago. Not because anything has gone wrong, quite the opposite. The business is asking more of them than ever before. More decisions, more oversight, more problem solving, more involvement in work they thought they would have handed over by now. As the business grows, everything seems to demand more at exactly the same rate. More clients need more people need more management, more work creates more complexity, and somehow much of that still finds its way back to the founder. If that feels familiar, it isn't because you're failing, it's often because the business is growing, when what it really needs is to begin scaling. In the previous 2 videos, I explained that growth isn't simply about increasing revenue. Growth happens across 4 areas of the business: revenue, people, processes, and operational capacity. I also introduced scaling as something quite different. Scaling is the ability to increase what the business delivers without increasing cost. Complexity and founder involvement at the same pace. Those ideas bring us to the conversation, because understanding the difference between growth and scaling changes how a founder sees the business. And once you can see that difference, you can start making different decisions. If this is the first video you've watched in this series, you'll still be able to follow along. But if you'd like the full picture, I'd recommend watching video 4 and 5 afterwards. Let's start by looking at what growth actually looks like inside a business. A growing business is producing more clients, more revenue, more work. But to make that happen, it usually needs more of everything else. More people, more management, more systems to coordinate, more decisions, and very often more of the founder. The founder becomes the person holding everything together. They answer the difficult questions, they step in when quality starts to drift, they make sure clients feel looked after. They become the point where knowledge, judgment, and accountability all meet. None of this means the business isn't successful. Many businesses grow like this for years. The important question isn't whether growth is good or bad, it's whether the business is becoming easier to operate as it grows, or whether every step forward asks for another equal step from the founder. If every increase in output demands the same increase in effort, cost, and involvement, and the business is growing, but it isn't yet scaling. Now, let's look at what scaling looks like from the inside. A scaling business is also producing more clients, more revenue, more work. But here's the difference. The effort behind it isn't rising at the same rate. The systems absorb the extra volume without needing more management to match it. The processes hold quality steady without the founder stepping in. The team works with enough independence that clients don't need the founder in the room to feel looked after. Each new piece of work costs a little less to deliver than the last one. The business is getting bigger and it's getting easier to run at the same time. That's what makes scaling so valuable. It's also what makes it demanding, because the things that make it possible, the systems, the processes, the capable team, have to be built on purpose. They don't appear on their own just because the business is growing. Let me put the two side by side. First, what drives the output? In a growing business, it's more input, more people, more founder time, more cost. In a scaling business, it's better infrastructure. The systems and processes carry the volume the founder used to carry personally. Then the cost of each piece of work. In a growing business, it stays about the same. Sometimes it rises because complexity builds up. In a scaling business, it falls. Each new client or project costs a little less to serve than the last. Founder involvement. In a growing business, it rises with volume. More clients mean more of the founder's attention. In a scaling business, it falls as a share of the whole. Not because the founder steps away, because the structure now handles what they used to handle. Delivery quality. In a growing business, quality depends on the founder being involved. When they're stretched, it slips. In a scaling business, quality holds whether the founder is there or not. The process carries the standard, not the person. And finally, what keeps it all going? In a growing business, it's the founder's continued energy matched by rising cost. In a scaling business, it's the structure itself. The more of it that's built, the more it gives back. Now, here's what happens when a founder mixes the two up. When they're doing one while believing they're doing the other. Think about the founder whose delivery quality keeps slipping. So they keep hiring to fix it. More people, higher payroll, same inconsistency. Because the problem was never the headcount. It was the absence of a repeatable process. Hiring into a process gap doesn't close the gap. It makes the gap bigger. Or the founder whose revenue is climbing while their cash stays tight. They might put more money into sales to bring in more work, but the operation can't deliver that work profitably. So the numbers at the top look better and the margins underneath get thinner. Or the founder who is simply working harder every quarter, who believes the answer to the growing load is more personal effort. Not seeing that the load is growing because the structure hasn't changed. The business is growing and the founder is the one carrying it. None of these are failures of effort or intelligence. They're failures of framing, a growth response applied to a scaling problem, or a scaling investment made in a business that isn't yet built to use it. And that mismatch costs money, time, energy, and the business can't get back. I want to be honest about why this confusion is so common. For a long time, growing and scaling look exactly the same from the outside. Revenue is rising, the team is expanding, the client list is getting longer. To anyone looking in, investors, advisors, even the founder's own team, it looks like a scaling business. The difference only shows itself when the founder notices something. That their own load isn't easing as the business grows, that each job isn't getting cheaper to deliver, that quality is being held together by their own involvement and not by the process, that the business is growing and they are growing with it, carrying the same share of the weight. At that point, this stops being a theory. It becomes something you feel in the day-to-day running of the business. And it becomes expensive to ignore. The founder who handle this well aren't the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who spot the difference early enough to act on it, before the gap becomes a ceiling. So what actually changes when a founder can tell the two apart? The diagnosis changes. Instead of wondering why the business feels harder to run than it should, the founder can ask better questions. Are we growing when we should be scaling? And if we are, which foundation is missing? The investment decisions change too. Not more headcount by default. Not more sales activity by default. The specific structural work that moves the business towards scaling. That might be process, it might be systems, it might be team capability or operational capacity. And the founder's own role changes. In a growing business, the founder grows with the business, carrying more as it asks for more. In a scaling business, the founder's job shifts from doing the work to building the thing that does the work. That's a different job. And it needs a different way of seeing the business. That shift is what the next part of this series is about, because before a founder can make it, they need to understand what's keeping them stuck in the middle of everything. And that's the subject of video 7. pull this together. Growing and scaling are not the same. Growing means producing more with effort and cost rising alongside it. Scaling means producing more while the business becomes easier and cheaper to run. Both are real, only one compounds. Confusing the two is expensive, not because founders make unintelligent decisions, but because growing and scaling look identical from the outside for a long time. The difference only becomes visible when the founder is carrying more than they should be, at a stage when the business should be carrying more of its own weight. Seeing the difference is where the right diagnosis begins. And the right diagnosis is where the right investment begins. Tier 2 of this series has been about naming the growth problem. Tier 3 explains why it breaks. The structural reasons founder-led businesses stay stuck in growth mode even when they're trying to scale. Video 7 is called What is Founder Dependency? If any of this felt familiar, if you recognized yourself in the founder who is growing when they should be scaling, that video will show you why. Everything is at www.turnercore.co.uk. The link is below. Thank you.